by sun's dying flame and Hades' wicked might, I peer into the darkness to take hold of light. Now I have the eyes of a shaman to unlock the spell. By sunup, you'll be Satan and that bitch's trap will be history.
Such a shame. Without her eyes, she'd be lost in the spirit world forever. Hearts remain to be broken.
Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine. Now, before I introduce my guest, I just want to tell a quick little story. As you guys, longtime listeners know, when I started this show back with the late, great Derek Ferguson, I said that one of the reasons I wanted to start the show was because I miss talking with Derek about superhero movies and stuff like that. But long before I met Derek, there was a guy that I used to talk about superhero movies and comic books and all this stuff with, probably the first person that I've really been able to talk about this stuff with in person. And it's been about 20 years since we got to connect. And finally, I was able to get him on the show. And that is Logan Trent. Logan, how you doing today?
Not bad. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so it's been a while. Yeah.
It's been a while. I'm so excited when I was able to get you on. But before we jump too much into anything else, tell people a little bit about yourself.
I'm a writer-editor. I worked for about like 10 years at crack.com, and now as along with a bunch of my other coworkers and stuff, there was a round of layoffs and things. So now I'm out there doing stuff on my own, like most of my other friends are, like Jason Pargin or Tom Ryman or Robert Evans, etc. So yeah.
Awesome. And let's talk a little bit about how you got into superheroes, because like I said, you and we used to talk about this stuff all the time. But in fact, I don't even really think I know how you yourself got into superheroes and comic books and all that. So what was kind of your origin story with all that stuff?
So with me, it's kind of one of those fundamental things where I don't have any separation from me and that. It's like asking me, like, how long have you been from Chicago? Because when I was a kid, my mom, like, I learned to read from a very early age. Like, when I went to preschool, I was already reading. And that was because my mom would read to me a lot, and one of the things that she used was comic books, because it's just words and pictures, so it's an easy way to get through there. So like when people always talk about like, oh, what's the first comic you read or anything, or like how'd you get in, it's just something I don't have any like formative memory of not being into comic books. It's just always, it's like asking me like, when did you first start watching television? Like, I don't know. So yeah, like I have a memory, like I have some memories of like what's like the earliest book I could remember like actually getting, but like I was reading before it. Like you remember the mall that you used to work at with the comic store?
Oh yeah, Golf Mill.
Yeah, so remember there was like a Toys R Us by there?
Yes, I begged, because my grandparents lived in Morton Grove. So, and guys, I know we're getting very local here right now. So, but yeah, and like my grandfather and I practically made him live at that Toys R Us.
Yeah, so like one of the earliest comics I remember, like actually remember getting was there were these comics. They had a reprint of like Untold Tales of Batman from like it was like a John Byrne book from like pre-crisis, but they reprinted it, and it came with this tiny like cassette tape where they would like voice act that issue, and like that was like one of the earliest books I can remember. But I was reading it before then, so yeah, just it's one of those things where comics and superheroes, it's just like always been part of like who I am and like what I've enjoyed reading, and it's always gonna be. So yeah.
Awesome. So what kind of characters did you gravitate towards early on?
As a kid, like it's pretty easy to also we're both the same age, right? Maybe one year difference.
I think like
or something.
1 year difference or something like that, but yeah,
Yeah.
basically around the same age.
So for younger people listening, like it was not always as plentiful as we had. So really, like when you're growing up there, you kind of just gravitate towards the big stuff, like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man was always there, and that was kind of around the time like Ninja Turtles, because of the cartoon, started taking off. So that was always in the house for that. But yeah, I was pretty much a big two guy until about maybe like 13 or maybe 12 when I started like branching into more indie stuff like Bone and like, the Image books and things like that. Cause like we kind of grew up with like the foundation of Image and like just them like, founding and kind of like the weird publishing schedule they had before they kind of like started expanding to doing more artsy stuff, which I really, really liked when I was like in high school. So yeah, it's always been all over the place. Like I like indie stuff, I like superhero stuff, I like, just weird web comics and things like that. I just like the art form in general. So yeah. But in terms of superheroes, like, you know, Spider-Man's always been my guy. I've always been a Spider-Man guy. Batman, Superman, like, there. I never was one of those kids who was like, oh, I only like DC or I only like Marvel. Like, I just like them all. So, yeah.
Yeah, I gravitated more towards Marvel just because that was kind of what I first got into through the X-Men, and I was never anti-DC or anything, but it was just Marvel was more prevalent in those formative years. Just because, I watched Batman the animated series, obviously, and the Batman movies, and I was really into those. But as for the larger DCU, there was nothing really to latch onto me because by the time Justice League came out, I was already like I think at the end of my high school career at that point. So it was easier for me to gravitate towards Marvel through like all because there was a bunch of now that I think about it, there was actually a lot of Marvel stuff back on TV because you had the X-Men, you had Spider-Man, Iron Man, Fantastic Four, Hulk, all those stuff. So it was very easy for a kid to just and the toys. I was a big toy guy, and there was always because Marvel owned Toy Biz, they just put out like toys of all their characters and there was nothing DC. So like I'd see like a weird Marvel character and I'd be like, oh, this guy looks cool. Let me find out more about him. And then that would get me more interested in the comics.
Yeah, you could get like wait, what's the language on this one?
Go, feel free.
Okay, you could get like a shitty like Trevor Fitzroy toy from like X-Men who like no one gives a shit about, but like you couldn't get a Green Lantern figure for the longest time from DC because they just had nothing going on. So yeah, no, it's like, oh, you like Ahab? A lot of kids love Ahab from X-Men, right? No, no one likes him. What are you fucking doing here? Yeah. Meanwhile, they give you like one green Jean Grey maybe every like 5 years because famously women don't sell toys.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I remember that too with the I remember the Batman Returns, the Catwoman figure, like it, could not find it anywhere. And someone actually once told me, they're like, I think that toy was just a myth. I'm like, no, it existed because I made my aunt drive to several stores before I finally found one.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah. Wild times back then. Anyway,
yeah, now you can get freaking everything from toy collecting. So, jeez, man. Like I was seeing they had what was it? Like Silverhawks reboot toys that you can get from like the now and they're like $60 each just because action figures are insane. My friend
That's
Tom
the thing.
Got the Wolverine meme where he's on the couch or looking at the photo of Jean. They had that as like a Comic-Con exclusive, so we bought that. It's like it's crazy how much they cater to people now because we got disposable income.
I was watching the Toys That Made Us. They did the Power Rangers episode, and they were talking about like the collector toy market for like the gentlemen of a certain age such as ourselves. and yeah, it's just insane like how much this stuff costs. I mean, And it's like I can't afford this stuff. I wish I could, but
It's
Jesus.
funny because I just am not into it like at all. Like I just don't. The older I got, the less I cared about collecting. Like when I was shoot, when I was like I think 14 or so, my basement flooded and it kind of ruined
Oh.
all of my comics and like all of my toys and all of that. And like ever since then, I've just been more like I want like stuff I can experience rather than just put on display. Like I care more about like reading comics than like collecting them for like any
Mhm.
type of like packaging things or stuff like that. So it's yeah, like it's cool that they have them there, but then I'd like look at him like, yeah, I'm not spending that. No, I'd rather like
Yeah.
actually buy something I'll read.
Yeah. I mean, I still get some of like the figures here in Japan. They've got a lot of like standalone like PVC type figures, and they cost like about. And I usually get them from like secondhand shops, and they're anywhere from like $10 to $20, so it's not a big deal. But like some of this other stuff, like I remember there's one like huge Iron Man figure they have, and it was like $1,000. I'm like, I'm not buying that. But yeah, I'm with you too. I'm much more into the experience stuff, especially because I don't have the space for it. I mean, Japan, the houses are famously much smaller than in America. So we just
Yeah.
don't have this. And if I was to buy physical comics, the shipping costs alone would be like twice the cost of the actual comics themselves. So I just get everything digital now. I'm pretty much all in on Marvel Unlimited now.
Yeah, I've gone pretty much there. I'm on the DC one and Marvel, and then I don't know if your readers don't or if your listeners don't know or not. There's a great app called Hoopla, and it's through your library, which you should be supporting anyway because libraries are one of our greatest community resources. But
Hmm.
if your library participates with that, you just download the Hoopla app and they have a ton of different things that you could just borrow, like books, and they have a huge comic thing. And the great thing about their comics section is it's not like they have some Marvel and DC stuff, but they've got tons of things from indie publishers. Like you can get a lot of Image stuff there, you can get a lot of like Boom, Dynamite, IDW, and like a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, it's when you have apps like that, you don't have to worry as much about like long boxes, which,
Hmm.
oh gosh, moving with those is such a pain in the ass. Like, yeah, no.
Dude, when I left for Japan, I left like all my comics back behind, and I'd switched over to trades by that point, but I still had like 2.5 filing cabinets full of comic books,
Oh, yeah,
and
no. It's
and well, and then a few years ago, when my parents decided, after my sister moved out, my parents decided they didn't want to live in that big house anymore, so they decided to downsize into a condo,
mhm.
and I was back, and I had to get rid of, and they're like, you have to get rid of all your comics. I'm like, okay, and it was a massive pain in the ass. By the end of it, I'm just like giving stuff away because it was just impossible to sell them all.
Yeah, it's because one of my jobs before like started doing editing and writing full time, I was doing shipping and receiving for a large company at their like corporate headquarters. So I had to do like international shipping and all of the local stuff and things. And we had to like figure out like customs and all of that. And just I can't imagine trying to ship your comics from America to Japan at that
No.
weight too. Like would have cost you it would have been insane. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
sell that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to, the stuff I was able to, I wanted to keep with me, just like, other stuff. I had like one like huge box that I shipped over to Japan, and that cost like $300. So like the comics alone would have been like double that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then like it's the same thing kind of with books too. I've kind of moved more onto like digital if I can like
Hmm.
get them on my like e-reader and stuff just because also I was getting out of control with my bookshelves and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, no.
No, yeah, same thing. And that became a problem when I was doing my master's degree, because all the, like a lot of the textbooks and stuff, they're only physical. So I had to like go to, and I was doing it from Japan remotely. So I had to like go through like, sketchy sites to download scans of the textbooks. Oh, that's insane. Anyway, what kind of stuff are you into lately? Anything that's kind of grabbing your attention? Movies, TVs, books, anything like that? It doesn't have to be superhero related.
Um kind of like So right now I'm really into sports too. I know you're not the biggest sports guy, so
No, not at all.
yeah, but recently they've been doing I got a podcast that I host with one of my ex-crack coworkers called WNBA, which is a WNBA podcast. So recently there's another league called Unrivaled, and they had like a one-on-one tournament with all of their players, which was a lot of fun to watch. Other than that, let's see. I've been one of the things like now that I'm out of like not having to keep up to date with like the newest releases and like movies and TV and kind of like that. I've been having a lot of fun like diving into older stuff that I kind of neglected just because like so much of my life was like, oh, I need to watch everything right when it comes out because I have to write an article or I have to fucking edit an article on it. So I've been diving into like a lot of like older movies that I just missed, that I just, not missed as in didn't see, but just haven't revisited in a while. So I've been doing like a Kurosawa deep dive recently.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, rewatched Ikiru for like the 15th time because that movie's fucking great. Then in terms of TV shows, I've been watching a bit more of anime than I ever had before. So, like, yeah, I don't know if, I mean, you're in the land of anime, so I don't know if you're like big on it or what your feelings
Not
are
so
with that.
much. I'm more of a I'm more of the live action Japanese. In fact, my other podcast is about Japanese movies, so we should
Okay.
probably have you on that for the Kurosawa stuff. But yeah,
Oh,
anime has
hell
just
yeah.
never been as much of my thing. It's just always been. I've always when I got into Japanese movies, I always kind of gravitated more towards the live action stuff. Like I got really into like Takashi Miike and those types of things.
Yeah, so like yeah, I've been watching a couple of like animes, some older ones and things like that. Then the other thing is like I didn't play video games for maybe like 15 years. So like the past 2 years or so I've started to like play some of those more, and it's funny because like I'll hear people complain about like stuff and things, and I'm just like playing like 3-year-old games, and I'm like, holy shit, this is the coolest thing I've played because I've
Mhm.
just not been there for a while. So like, I played the new Spider-Man game. That's been fun as hell. I got into the Yakuza series, which has been
Oh, that game that's really fun. It
I
is
love those games so
yeah,
much, and I
yeah.
watched the Amazon show. That was a lot like fun
I
too.
gotta
So
watch that still.
it's it's not the games, but it's got it's I can see why people might not like it, but if you just accept that it's kind of not doing an actual adaptation, like you can enjoy some of the performances and stuff. But
Mhm.
yeah, so but yeah, I've really enjoyed the hell out of that series. So yeah.
Those games are really fun too for as from the perspective of someone who lives in Japan because the I mean the actual story and type stuff like that that's all complete fantasy, but like the actual
Mhm.
locations, like it's modeled after real locations in Tokyo or in Osaka, and you go into the stores, all the like power-ups and stuff you buy, those are real products in Japan. So it's really cool. Like my and they have the convenience stores and everything. They use different names for the game, but the style of the logos and stuff, they're exactly like the major convenience stores here in Japan. So a lot of that like cultural stuff is complete dead on accurate.
Yeah, and there's also like frequently slot car racing that might
Mhm.
depend on a guy's marriage if you don't do well during the race, right? Frequently, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then also street fights with just random one-eyed guys who
Oh yeah, that
have
happens all
weird
the time
fucking
here.
breakdance moves. Like, yeah, no, exactly like what you've
Yeah,
described. So,
exactly. Yeah, picking up bicycles and bashing people's head happens all the time here. I can't walk to work without getting hit in the head with a bicycle.
yeah, no, it's just crazy.
Uh,
So, yeah, pretty much like that's there. In terms of like really specific stuff, kind of all over the place. Like I'm trying to think of like it's one of those things where I'm trying to like what the hell was the last series I've watched? But I think COVID and just like all the news stuff has kind of like warped my brain where I forgot. Oh, now I remember. My friends Tom and Jeff have a Batman podcast, which is hilarious. If you guys want to check it out, it's Tom and Jeff Watch Batman. So very easy title to remember. But they just did the Cape Crusader So I kind of like rewatched some of those episodes and stuff. Have you checked that out yet? Or
Yeah, that was pretty good.
yeah,
I mean, I didn't get as into it as everybody did, but I thought it was enjoyable.
yeah, there's stuff that I really, really liked, and then a couple of things where it's like, I don't know. But I'm looking forward to the new season when that eventually comes back. So yeah, pretty much that. X-Men 90. I keep wanting to call it. Is it
97, yeah.
97? Yeah, I keep
97,
wanting
yeah.
to call it 95, but X-Men 97 was really good. I liked how they just kind of did different eras every couple episodes, and they kind of fixed some really shitty storylines from the 90s. So
Yeah. Yeah, I was amazed by X-Men 97 because I was expecting it like, okay, it'll be pure nostalgia bait. I'll probably enjoy it
yeah,
on that level, but it was just like so much better than that it had so much better than even the original series was. It was amazingly well done.
yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. So, that in terms of like nerd stuff, that's what I've been watching. For like non-superhero stuff, there's a there's a writer, Dashiell Hammett. You probably know who he is. Yeah. So he has this character called the Continental Op, which is pretty famous. It's kind of like the
Wasn't that
beginning
the
of
basis for Yojimbo and
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
he was in a
Red
novel
Harvest, yeah.
called Red Harvest, which was the basis for Yojimbo, which got cut and pasted into Fistful of Dollars. So like when I
and
was
Brick as well.
yeah, so when I was a teen, like I read all of those short stories and stuff, but there was like 3 or 4 that just never got republished because they were old as shit. So I guess maybe like 4 years or so, they did a huge book that finally published those and all of the other short stories in one collection. So I finally got around to reading that because now I have time to read for fun. So yeah, I actually dug that, and it was great to finally read like the stories that I hadn't read in like 25 years, and then the ones that I'd missed out on that I'd been waiting to read for like the longest time. So yeah.
And I think
Yeah,
if I'm
fun
not
fact
mistaken, I think
about people who edit for a living, a lot of the times we don't get to read as much as we want to for
Yeah.
pleasure because we have to read shit we have to edit all the time. So
same thing for writers too, because we gotta always working
Yeah.
on stuff. But yeah, I think all the Dashiell Hammett stuff, I think all those Continental Op stories, I think they're all public domain now, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so too. Like it, at least the early ones definitely have to be because just, that's how copyright works. But yeah, a lot more of that's going to start to fall into there. So
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been on a public domain kick lately. Like I'm always trying to find stuff to repurpose and reuse. And I did a comic book last year with a bunch of stuff. But and now I'm working on a pro serial that I'm gonna use like a bunch of like public domain heroes in.
Oh, cool.
But it's been fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to like take these like forgotten characters and just like find new uses for them and new spins on them. And there's some real gems in there that have just been like forgotten to time.
I like when people do interesting takes on those. One of the things that I just don't like is I hate when it's the lazy thing where it's like oh, hey, here's a cartoon character. I'm going to make it into the darkest horror thing it's so easy, like low hanging fruit. Like I like when people do something different with it, like what you seem to be doing rather than the Winnie the Pooh horror franchise that they've been unleashing. Good Lord.
Yeah, it's that stuff's it's like a big topic of conversation on the public domain forums, which it gets kind of annoying because I'm like, there's so much other good stuff people are doing, and everybody just keeps talking about the horror stuff and complaining about it.
Yeah,
and it's like you guys are giving them
be so twisted. It's like, okay, man, you can be more creative than that. Come on, now.
Exactly. Yeah. For me, like the thing I just got into is my wife and I, we finished the last season, the end of the last season of Cobra Kai, which was
I'm in the middle of that. Please don't spoil it.
So, I won't say anything else. It's a lot of fun. It ends in a very satisfactory way, and it's actually got a connection to the film we're going to be talking about today because the actor who plays Chosen. He's in this movie. I literally
paused the movie within 2 minutes of me watching it because I'm like, is that fucking Chosen? And I looked it up and I'm like, yep, that is absolutely Chosen. So
I did like that. And yesterday I got to see Captain America Brave New World, which I thought was a lot of fun. I don't know why it's getting all these negative reviews. I mean, it's no Winter Soldier, but it was still really entertaining. I thought Harrison Ford did a great job, far better than I expected from the trailers. It looked like he was just going to be phoning it in, but I thought he actually turned in a pretty nuanced performance. And it was cool to see that the Incredible Hulk is no longer being treated as the redheaded stepchild of the MCU, and they're finally actually picking up with stuff from that movie. So it was all really good.
I'm not watching that movie until
Oh, really?
a while. It's the issue with the Sabra character and the
Oh, yeah,
actress
yeah, yeah.
playing her, I can't. My Iraqi ass refuses to.
No,
So, yeah.
that's a fair criticism. Yeah, I mean, one thing though is like she is not a big part of the movie. I will say that. Like she's got a very minimal role in it. But
Yeah, it's just
understandable.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's like, yeah. So it's just one of those things where it's like someday I'll probably get around to it, but like, yeah, for now, like I'm not giving them money on like opening weekend. Like that's just not.
No, that's fair enough. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So today we are going to be talking about The Crow, Wicked Prayer, but first we're going to take a quick break. So listen to some ads and then we'll be right back. Ever have a situation where you want to watch something on Netflix, but it's only available in another country? Or are you nervous about using public Wi-Fi networks without any protection? Then what you need is a VPN, or virtual private network. A VPN is essentially your own superhero mask that protects your device's secret identity from prying eyes. In these uncertain times, protecting yourself on the internet is more important than ever to prevent your data from being sold to the highest bidder. But free VPNs don't offer the security they promise, so a subscription VPN is best. I've been a loyal user of ExpressVPN for years. It's got fast speed, great support, and is very easy to use. Just install ExpressVPN on your device or Wi-Fi router, click a button, and you've got instant protection. You can also select which country you want to browse from, which gets around geo-blocking on streaming services like Netflix and Disney+. If you'd like to try out ExpressVPN, you can get a free trial by clicking the link in the show notes. So what are you waiting for? Start protecting yourself today. Since you're listening to this show, I already know you love watching superhero movies and TV shows, and you just might enjoy superhero comics. But how about superhero novels? I'm giving away 2 free superhero novels and 1 free superhero short story. Visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP to get access to Vanguard, Heroes Forged, the first novel in my own Avengers and X-Men inspired superhero novel series, and Ronin Born, my cyberpunk superhero novel set in a futuristic Japan. I'm also throwing in Fire and Lightning, a free prequel story to my new Power Rangers inspired superhero series Omega Knights. So visit percivalconstantine.com/SCP, those are just the letters SCP, to get started, or click on the link in the show notes. And now on with the show. And we are back, and today the movie we're talking about is The Crow, Wicked Prayer from 2005. This was a direct-to-video movie, basically kind of a loose adaptation of the Crow, Wicked Prayer novel, although very, very loose. And this featured Edward Furlong in the main role, also had David Boreanaz coming off of Angel in it, and Tara Reid, Dennis Hopper, who I'm convinced was just high on drugs the entire time he was filming this. And like we had mentioned, chosen from Cobra Kai,
Yuji Yakamoto.
Yuji Yakamoto, thank you. I was just trying to look up his name. And also, surprisingly, Emmanuel Tricky. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name, but I loved her in Chicory. Thank you. I loved her in Superman and Lois. She played Lana in that. Yeah. However you pronounce it, but I'm just going to call her Emmanuel. But she was great in Superman and Lois, so I was really surprised to see her in this because I completely had no memory of her being in this movie. But I first saw this. I think I picked it up
before
at Blockbuster.
You start. Can you give me a little bit of the original Crow theme? That right there, because because sometimes when a movie is so shitty, a spirit can't rest, and then a crow will bring you back to talk shit about that terrible movie on a superhero podcast. This is a bad movie, man.
It is bad. It is bad. Because I sent you the list of movies, and this was on there because this is a movie I actually do own. I picked it up for like $2 at Blockbuster. I sight unseen, so I had to watch it.
You got it for $2 at Blockbuster? It cost
$2
me $4 to rent it on Amazon.
Oh my god. Oh man, I'm sorry you had to spend $4 on this piece of shit.
I don't care. It's I had a bunch of like gift card money on there anyway, but man, what a garbage film. But
I know
Yeah,
when
sorry
you
to
you
interrupt you. Go back.
no, no, it's fine, it's fine. But you I sent you the list and you're like, oh, you like The Crow, right? How about Wicked Prayer? I'm just like, uh, okay. I hope you know what you're getting. I'm like, it's a terrible movie, but okay, I'm up for it if you are.
I had not seen this movie before. This is the first time I'd seen all the other Crow movies except for the remake, which that is another movie I'm definitely not seeing in theaters. I'll wait till that hits streaming. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
this
already
one
out, I
had
think, in
kind of
streaming.
avoided me. So yeah, I got a lot of
Yeah.
thoughts on this. Okay.
Yeah, I do too. And well, first let's back up a little bit. What is your history with the Crow franchise in general?
So I have a funny history with it. So Brandon Lee died on my birthday, which was kind of a
Oh,
big bummer because I was a Brandon Lee fan before The Crow because I was a huge Bruce Lee fan and I liked like some of his earlier stuff like Rapid Fire and
mhm.
Showdown in Little Tokyo, which has one of the funniest gags before a big fight. Have you seen that or no?
I have, but it was so long ago. But I think I know what
It's
you're talking
him and
about.
Dolph Lundgren, and they're about to go take on like the army of bad guys. And there's just this little pause where Brandon says to him, "Hey, before we go, I just want you to know you have the biggest penis I've ever seen on a man." And Dolph just like pauses and says, "Thanks." It's just such a dude's rock moment that's hilarious. So, yeah, Brandon died on my birthday, and then Brandon's death got me a detention at school, which I think I posted about this on Blue Sky, but I had a teacher and I had to correct her that Bruce Lee's son who died was Brandon Lee and not Jason Scott Lee, who played Bruce Lee in Dragon the Bruce Lee story. That was just another Asian man who happened to have
Mhm.
the same last name. Yes, the teacher was white. So, yeah. Yeah, she did
and
not take that well. So,
yeah, Brandon Lee actually he was offered that part to play Bruce Lee in that movie, and he understandably turned it down.
yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my history with The Crow was like I was looking forward to seeing it. So I didn't see it in theaters, but the minute that it hit Blockbuster, I rented it immediately. I watched it, loved it with my friends, and just, watched it a bunch and just yeah, I was like 10 toes deep, like early on with The Crow. Like it wasn't one of
Mhm.
those things like I discovered like later on or anything, like just right when it's like kind of hit pop culture mainstream in a huge way. Like I was part of that. It's like a little kid. So yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I came to it late actually. I remember seeing trailers for it when it was out in theaters and just thinking like this looks weird. I don't know anything about this movie. And I remember seeing the posters and everything and I had kind of because I was like I think 11 when it came out and I had kind of an awareness of the Brandon Lee's death in it, but nothing really in depth. And then it wasn't until a few years later when I was in the library of all places and they had it on VHS and I rented it from the library and just fell in love with it like as soon as I watched it and I did a deep dive into The Crow. Like I got really into the comics, I got into the TV show The Crow Stairway to Heaven. I actually I'm gonna say I like that show. It was a fun show. I think it had, especially the latter half of the season, it seemed to have found its footing and then got canceled right out from under it. um and
Also killed a person during production accidentally.
yeah, well, that's been happening on like all these Crow movies. There's like this whole
Yeah.
thing about the Curse of the Crow, where like there's always like somebody who dies on the set of one of these movies. Usually it's like a stuntman or something like that, but it did happen with obviously Brandon Lee in the first one.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I got really into that, all of that back then. I had like Crow t-shirts, all of that stuff. I had the poster on my wall. And the movies like City of Angels, I came around on eventually. When I found out more about the production, I eventually read the original screenplay in comic form, and it was a much better story than the movie we got. Salvation, when that came out, I was really intrigued, and I think I had gotten passes, I think, to see it, and then I got sick when it was like this brief, theatrical run. And I think I got sick like the day we were supposed to go see it, and so I missed it in the theater, but I got it on DVD later. And I liked it at the time, although when we rewatched it for the podcast, I found a lot more problems with it. This one, though, this is even the remake. Like there's I think the remake has, I think if they didn't call it Eric and Shelley, the remake would have been a perfectly serviceable Crow movie for the most part. This one is the one Crow property I can honestly say that I think has almost no redeeming qualities at all.
I've only seen what was the previous Salvation. I only saw that
Salvation, yeah.
once and I remember not liking it at all. I think Eric Mabius just does not have the presence to carry
No, he
that
doesn't.
stuff, and it was just garbage here. So here, so this movie's weird because I had an idea of what I was gonna think about it going into it. And then literally, like I said, 2 minutes into this movie, I paused it because I was like, is that fucking Chosen? But then when I was looking that up, I saw the director and I'm like, wait a fucking minute. And then I just started, like, even before watching the movie, I just started reading more and more because the director for this is uh
Lance Mungia.
Lance Mungia. So he made this indie movie in the 90s called Six String Samurai, which it's one of those like kind of cult movies where if somebody came up to me and they told me like I hated that movie, it's garbage, there's so much terrible stuff in there, I'd be like, yeah, I can agree with that. And if somebody else came up to me and was like, oh man, it's insane, I love this crazy shit in there, it's such a crazy movie, I love this, I'd be like, yeah, I can see that. It's if you're deep into it being a cult movie and you like it a lot, it hits the right way. And if not, it just does it. And so he did not direct a movie until this thing came out. And then I was looking at it and it was like, oh, okay, 2004 Dimension Films, Harvey Weinstein's horrible hands in this. Mm-hmm. And it just made me sad because when you're watching this, you can see a indie director kind of being like, I'm not saying that he's a great director or anything, or that this is a good movie, because there's a lot of problems that I'll get into it, but you can see an indie director being crushed by Weinstein's cheap ass, horrible, like, I mean, aside from all of his weird rapist shit, he has a history of just like bullying smaller directors and like taking properties and just making shitty films of them just to keep the rights, which, you know, you can see that with like the Hellraiser franchise and tons of other films and things like that. Yeah. And you kind of can just see that on screen with just how bad the budget is, how fucking claustrophobic all the shots are in terms of scenes that should be larger than they are. There is no budget on this film. It is really sad. And it kind of, like I said, like there's a lot of problems that are its own making, but then there's other stuff where I'm like, this is a bummer. Like, So yeah, I went in thinking I was going to hate it just because it was a bad movie like Salvation, but I kind of just was like more depressed as just like the crushing feel of like shitty franchise Hollywood direct-to-video filmmaking. So yeah.
You know who I felt really bad for in this was actually David Boreanaz, because I know you and I were both big Angel fans back in the day, and I think he does a pretty good job throughout most of this movie. Once he becomes Lucifer, then he kind of goes off the rails. But up until that point, like, he is the only one who actually makes the dialogue, which is dog shit dialogue. He's the only one who makes it sound kind of believable.
The problem with this is, so Crow is not, no offense to James O'Barr, because I know that Crow is very personal to him, and I'm not saying this to be offensive or anything. I'm just saying as a statement of fact. Crow is not a complicated concept. It's a very simple idea. It's bad thing happens, person comes back, gets revenge. So do you like cooking at all? Or
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you'll recognize this too. When you're cooking, and there's certain recipes where it's like super complicated. You got to have like multiple ingredients and you got to make sure that you're cooking them in different techniques and stuff like that. Meanwhile, there's certain recipes where it's just like 4 ingredients, 1 pan. And those are always the ones that you can fuck up the easiest, because those mostly rely on A, quality ingredients, and B, great technique. And in the first Crow movie, there's a very low budget on that. It was only like, what, 13 million, and then they had to add like I think 10 million because of the Brandon Lee death and stuff. But all the ingredients are there. Ernie Hudson's the most famous person in that movie at the time that they were making it.
Mhm.
But they nail everybody is a fantastic character actor. Like you've got Michael Patrick Kelly as T-Bird, famous from The Warriors and a bunch of other stuff. You've got Michael Wincott just chewing up scenery. You've got fucking Tony Todd, Joe Polito,
Mhm.
all of these people, all of these great character actors for these tiny roles, and they just nail the casting. They have all the ingredients in there, and stylistically and technically, Alex Proyas is just deep in his bag and just so creative and doing all this other stuff. Here, you have somebody who's like kind of got little ambitions and just none of the tools to work with, none of the stuff to do anything with it. I remember I paused and I read an interview with the director, and he was like, yeah, like there were days where it was great and I was getting along with like the cast, like Boreanaz, and like, it was fun. And then like there were other days where I was like, did they burn the negatives? And like that's a horrible situation to try to be creating art. So yeah, it's my problem with this is that the leads are miscast and then the side characters are just terribly cast with bad acting, and they
Mhm.
went for name recognition rather than actor ability, especially with Dennis Hopper and like Tara Reid. Like,
Yeah.
so sorry, I'm going on kind of a rant, but like
No, go right
Edward
ahead.
Furlong's strengths of an actor are being a smarmy bastard that you kind of want to smack around and shit. So why wouldn't you have him be the goddamn cult leader? David
Yes.
Boreanaz's strengths as an actor are being a stoic undead guy who you kind of root for, but also has kind of a shady past. Make him the Crow. The only person who they kind of nail, and it's a bummer because he dies right away, is Chosen knows exactly what fucking movie he's in. Every line he delivers is perfectly done, and he's just the right amount of crazy. And I wish he had lasted longer, but he's the first henchman who dies.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. He's like the only one who actually, him and Boreanaz are the only ones who seem to understand their parts at all. But yeah, that was my whole thing about, as soon as I found out that David Boreanaz was going to be in this, my first thing was, oh, you're casting David Boreanaz in a Crow movie. Of course he's going to be the lead. That's a no-brainer. Then I found out, no, he's playing the villain. I'm like, ooh. And we're getting Edward Furlong to play the Crow. I'm like, what are we doing here? And to Boreanaz's, to defend Boreanaz on this, like my late co-host Eric, he had said when we had talked about the original Crow movie, I brought this up to him and he's like, well, maybe he didn't want to play the same type of character that he plays on Angel. I'm like, all right, so maybe that's why. But still, like getting Edward Furlong in this part was just not the right choice at all. Tara Reid too, like maybe if you switch Tara Reid and Emmanuel's parts, maybe they would have worked better too, because Tara Reid just is not believable as this, cult mistress or whatever she is.
Tara Reid just shouldn't have been in this movie. Emmanuel Chicory is already bad casting as a Native American and Latino person. So like Tara Reid cast as that would be even worse.
That's true. Yeah. But at least she would have had the blue eyes, which they keep talking about how Lily has blue eyes. She doesn't have fucking blue eyes.
She literally has brown eyes, and you cast the person obsessed with her blue eyes who has some of the most piercing blue eyes of the era, Tara Reid. It's such a... There's so many dumb little choices like that screw up things. Like one of the henchmen for David Boreanaz is the Huntington Beach bad boy Tito Ortiz. For those of you UFC fans, famous for his series with like Ken Shamrock and all of that. So, okay, he's a bad actor, but at least maybe you'll get a good fight scene with him. No, his only fight scene involves baseball bats, and there's no budget to like actually do some good fight choreography or even like take the time to do it. And you have him going against Edward Furlong, who is not a martial artist by any means or anything like that. So you've just like, why would you even cast him in there? Like, get a better character actor for that role then. Like, so there's just dumb choices after dumb choices that kind of shoot this in the foot. Like you mentioned, like they couldn't just put contacts on the brown-eyed actress to make her have blue eyes, or maybe put the brown eyes on Tara Reid to cover up her blue eyes until she takes the blue eyes. Like very silly choices going all around in there.
I mean, I guess they didn't even have much of a makeup budget, because Edward Furlong's Crow makeup is the laziest fucking makeup I've ever seen in any Crow production. Like I've seen
the
cosplay. That is, yeah, it's fucking
Literal
I think they
Sharpie.
literally used a Sharpie in this. It's
It is
fucking
literally
ridiculous.
a Sharpie. Yeah.
But I mean, like in real life too. I mean, like I think they really used the Sharpie when they did the makeup. It's just, and especially, you mentioned Tito Ortiz, Yuji Okamoto, David Boreanaz. These guys have a record of fighting in movies or in TV, so they have the skills they need to pull off believable fight scenes. And you put them in scenes where they're not using those skills, and instead we got to rely on Edward Furlong being whipped all around the screen on fucking terrible wire ass.
It's so, like I said, this is the miscasting goes beyond Furlong and him. Like, so for those of you who haven't watched, the whole point is that like David Boreanaz is in charge of like this satanic cult, and they're pretty much like the four horsemen of apocalypse. So they're all named after like death, war, famine, pestilence, and stuff. So you figured that you might get the big, giant, hulking MMA guy to play war, but he plays famine, and like. There's no rhyme or reason as to why you would cast him in that. Like, lean into your actor's strengths. If that's who you have to cast. And there's none of that going on here. And then there's just very cheap, lazy stuff. There's a scene when we get to Dennis Hopper's part where Macy Gray is supposed to be dead. And I don't know if you noticed this, but
no,
if you look, she literally turns her head when she's on the ground because I guess she was uncomfortable in that position. And I rewound it. I'm like, wait, what? And like, yeah, they just couldn't reshoot that because they had no fucking money. So there's no budget on there. And like I said, that can't just be your excuse for everything, because there's a lot of movies that don't have any budget whatsoever, and they're able to come up with creative ways around things. And that the problem is when you try to take a simple premise and you try to make it too much and you don't have the resources to do that. I think I read a quote from the director where he was like, and this is 100% why this is a bad Crow movie. He said, Crow movies are usually like something along the lines where it's like just a very easy story about good versus evil and that type of thing. And that he wanted to create it so that there was multiple reasons as to why people were doing stuff. And that like, the bad guys have motivations and that the good guy is bad there. That's not how you make a Crow film. If there's ever a simple thing that's good and bad, like it's Crow. Literally, you can't have them be too complicated like that because it's going against the premise of the whole fucking series. Like,
yeah. And to your point about the budget, have you ever seen the 2018 movie Freaks?
Yeah.
I mean, that had a budget of $2,000. And that movie is really well done. I mean, I covered Versus on, Japan on Film this past season, and that had a budget of like about maybe 10 grand, and they really did a good job with that budget. This had a budget that was a lot higher than both of those, I think, but it's still, they don't know how to use it at all. Like it had a budget of, I don't have it here. I'll look it up and I'll find it. But
there's no info on it. I saw one site that kind of said like 8 million, but that seems bullshitty because there's no way Weinstein's giving out that money for a fucking fourth video installment thing. But also in that interview, he said he had more time to film Six String Samurai, which was his independent film, than he did to do the fight scenes on this, which also explains why the fight scenes are bad. It's one of those things where I feel frustrated from the filmmakers. Like I've been lucky enough to like befriend like working directors and stuff like that. And the thing that you got to understand is no one goes out to make a bad movie. Just
except for Uwe Boll, maybe.
Yeah. But like most of the time you're just constrained by like your budgetary things. And when you have that, you just need to know when to downsize shit to make it fit in a better place. And this story is not a good Crow story, and it's overly complicated. And because it's overly complicated, you start to want to do like wider and more expressive like action set pieces and stuff, but you don't have the budget to do any of that shit, so it just looks like garbage on screen. So your script is bad, your technique is bad, and your cast is miscast. So it's just a time bomb waiting to happen, and that time bomb results in a shitty film.
And onto that miscasting thing, like, could they not find one Native American actor in all of Hollywood to play any of these parts? Because like you've got like Danny Trejo, Emmanuel Cheriki, all these actors who are obviously not Native American, and they're casting them as natives, and it's and but you don't even use like the Native American mythology at all. Like it's all focused on Christian mythology of like heaven and hell. Even Danny Trejo is playing a Catholic pastor,
Mhm.
or so it's like, which also confused about that because he's got a daughter and a son. So what the hell's going on there?
It's
Um,
insane. There's too much convoluted stuff. Like the story starts off with the like, oh, there's this toxic waste plant and that they're turning into a casino. And it's just the motivations are all muddled up. The also the biggest problem is you don't give a shit about Edward Furlong's character.
mhm.
The opening like 10 minutes, they tell you exactly the motivations of all of the villains, and that you have more depth with them than you do with the Crow, who's supposed to be who's supposed to be your protagonist that you're following. We don't even find out the reason why people hate him until midway through the second act. We just know he killed somebody, and you don't find out why he killed anybody until then, and even that is presented in a bad way. Also, another
Yeah.
side of bad filmmaking is consistent flashbacks to things that we just saw like 10
Mhm.
minutes earlier, like for multiple characters. We see the death scene multiple times with just weird different filters. We see scenes of fucking David Boreanaz talking to Tara Reid just multiple times through their memories and like flashbacks and stuff just to pad out time. There is no money in this production at
Mhm.
all. So,
And
yeah.
the well, and two, like the death scene, like one of the ways that the Crow stories have typically done it is they've always done the death scene in flashbacks, and it's been done very effectively that way because you're only getting these brief bits and pieces here. Here, they just do everything in complete chronological order, and it's just fucking boring. It's boring as
It's
shit.
boring because there's no time. Like
Yeah.
Edward Furlong dies, gets thrown into a refrigerator, and then they throw it into like a landfill or whatever, and he literally comes back half an hour later. And
Mhm.
and that's another thing too. Like you can see a version of that where him crawling out through like being buried under a pile of garbage would be kind of reminiscent of like Brandon Lee having to dig his way out of the grave as Eric in the first movie, and it's a striking visual. But here they don't have the budget to even like bury him in garbage. It's just him popping open a refrigerator door and like shimmeting out in the laziest way possible. I mean, I keep harping on there being no money, but it's really sad. Like,
Thing
yeah.
too, I didn't get to is why did they light the refrigerator on fire? That's not going to do anything.
Yeah, no, there's just stuff to do stuff. And there's a scene where they're supposed to be having like this weird cult like party peyote thing, and they literally just it's a camera on a tripod and they don't leave the room at all, and they just shake it and change color filters and stuff because they don't have the money to pay for a party like that. They have a scene that's supposed to be a shootout at like this huge gathering of folks and like them wrecking up and causing mayhem, and it's just literally a shot of Tito Ortiz hitting the same table area multiple times because they definitely are not going to get their security deposit back if they fuck up that shooting location. And you just don't see anything. Dennis Hopper waddles onto the scene. All of his this is how you can tell Dennis Hopper agreed to this movie. All of his scenes take place in the same room, clearly shot in one day, and it involves numerous half-naked women all around him. It's very easy to like, okay, yeah, pay me entirely in cocaine. I will show up. I got one day for me. That's it.
And I'm doing that cocaine before I start before filming starts, obviously.
I'm surprised there wasn't a scene of him doing it while filming. Like it's
I
just
know.
yeah. Although actually they might not have been able to afford the cocaine with this budget. So yeah,
They just
no.
gave him like some cheap, cheap toilet wine or something, maybe.
He had to bring his own from home. Just pissed, like so fucking unprofessional. Yeah,
Well, also too, like this, and the the whole Satanist aspect is just like you're not even using this stuff in any sort of a creative way. Like they go through this satanic ritual, and then they celebrate by having deviled ham and deviled eggs. I'm like, this is like this is like parody level shit. Not even parody level shit. I think even in a parody, I think like you're pushing this joke too far.
it's the camp stuff that that guy likes to do, but it's inappropriate in the movie that he's trying to make,
Mhm.
and it's inappropriate in the way that he disperses it. Also, like there's no commitment from this gang of villains. There's like numerous times where they're supposed to be Satanists who are 10 toes deep. Like, we're literally killing this guy, taking his heart out and carving his girlfriend's eyes out, and then we're going to have a wedding ceremony. And numerous times they're like, it's not too late to stop. It's like, motherfucker, you just committed a double homicide and you cut out a person's heart. He has 666 engraved on his chest. What do you mean it's not too late to stop? Like, throughout the whole thing, people keep trying to quit doing this. They're the least committed gang of fucking cultists I've ever seen. And like, that's fine if you wanted to present that like as a humorous thing, like, oh, we really thought it was bullshit and we're in over our heads, because a much better movie, Jennifer's Body, kind of does a similar thing like that with the band of idiots led by Adam Brody. So it's not like you can't do that stuff. This just, again, technique wise, terribly done.
I'm glad you mentioned Jennifer's Body. I love that movie.
Very underrated.
Yes, absolutely underrated. And the 666 thing, that's one of the things I noted here, because it's like, you're not even trying to stylize it. It's just literally the numbers on it. It's not like The Omen or anything like that, where they try and find an interesting way to draw it. No, it's just like, nah, let's just draw 666. We don't have the budget to hire an artist to think of anything.
There's no depth of anything. Like, your antagonists have no depth. Your protagonists has no depth. The background story of everything in there has no depth because you're too lazy to hire actual native or native actors to play Native Americans. So you just have people like doing gibberish fake ceremony stuff, which just comes off as offensive. Tara Reid is Tara Reid. Yeah. So,
and, you know, they've got this, they even mentioned, like, at one point, you know, Tara Reid when she's reading from the grimoire or whatever, she talks about Hades. I'm like, that's not even fucking Christian mythology. What the hell are you doing here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh God. It's like, I mean, even there is also, so this was based on a novel, very loosely based apparently, but here's what the premise of the novel was. An ex-drifter named Dan Cody is on his way to propose to his girlfriend. Letitia Dreams the Truth Harden, a half-crow native who runs a small Arizona tourist trap called the Spirit Song Trading Post. Unfortunately for Dan, a pair of goth occultists named Johnny Church and Kira Damon have beaten him to Letitia, whose unusual blue eyes they need for their quest to steal the mythical power of the crow. After killing Dan and Letitia, the evil duo take Letitia's eyes, seal her and her boyfriend's bodies in an old refrigerator, and resume their journey, guided by Kira's grimoire and a sassy shrunken head named Raimondo. Single Crow fights its way through the magical defenses that have placed around the corpses and resurrects Dan as the new Crow, so he can avenge his, but also put a stop to Kira's plans, which not only endanger the Crow and its brethren, but also the very souls of every prior unjustly murdered mortal who the Crows had revived as a Crow. Which is, you know, not the best thing, but I think it's hell of a lot better than what we had here. Even just having a shrunken head in this would have made the movie a lot more interesting.
The problem is that like they piecemeal this out too much. So again, like you don't find out Cuervo, which, spoiler for those of you that don't speak Spanish, is just Spanish for crow. Yeah, wonder who's going to be the crow out of these characters. But like, you don't find out anything about Edward Furlong's character's depth in terms of just like why he became a convict until second act. And even with like the opening scene, they literally plaster like trading card info for each of the Satanists there. But then they start to piecemeal like little shit later on. Like you find out David Boreanaz's dad was murdered and things like that. And you think they piecemeal out things that you really needed earlier to give a shit about any of these characters for that to work. And again, they do that mostly for the bad guys, which is the opposite of how you want to set up a revenge story. Like, that just doesn't work that way. Like, I suppose there's some version of this if you wanted to do it from like a bad guy's perspective and have The Crow be kind of like a slasher film type thing. But if you're doing that, you need to change everything in terms of how you're directing and how you're stylistically making it. And that would be a very interesting movie. This movie doesn't do any of that.
Yeah.
It's just lazy filmmaking.
That would actually be very interesting if you did a movie from the villain's perspective and the Crow is like this slasher type character. That would be really cool, and it'd be a nice twist on the mythology and everything, but no one has the creativity to even think of doing that. I honestly kept forgetting Edward Furlong was the main character in this movie. Like, there's several scenes.
Yeah,
I'm just
there's
like,
no
and
depth to him.
Yeah, and it goes back to Edward Furlong. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This is supposed to be his movie.
Yeah, like the thing with The Crow is that, like, again, like I made fun of it in the intro for this thing, but it's like sometimes like a spirit is killed and they can't rest because it's such a horrendous thing, and it's just there's nothing about his character that like gives you that longing of like there it again it shouldn't be this hard to make a Crow movie. Like you could throw darts at a board and reuse this premise over and over again. Like, okay, she's a Chinese woman and she works at a bank and she uncovers that the bank is money laundering for gangsters, so her boss killed her. And if that fucking premise sounds familiar, it's literally what happens to Patrick Swayze in the movie Ghost. So, like, even other John Wick could have been a Crow movie if you just killed him when the dog dies. Like, there's so many you could just steal from better movies if you're being this creatively bankrupt and just do it that way. But like, this is just a convoluted pile of crap, and then they don't even really give you any depth as to what is going on with this Satanist plan and why it's working, if he actually is Satan or if he's not. Like, there's just nothing was thought out before they wrote this. And I think in the interview it said that this script was written in 14 days, and buddy, does it read like that. Jesus Christ. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and it is a simple premise. Like, it is basically a revenge story. That's all the Crow basically is.
It's such a recyclable premise. There should not. Doesn't apply just to this installment. It applies to every installment. It should not be this hard to make a Crow movie. So, have you ever watched the Saw movies?
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah, so like by the third movie, the dude who plays Saw gets like shot in the head, and they still made 10 more of these movies. It's like, oh, well, this one takes place before part 2, and then he's got these assistants who do that, and they do all these like weird ass tricks to like continue this franchise. You don't have to do that with The Crow. You're literally in a franchise where every series installment is just an origin story, and you don't have to worry about things like that. So it's not this hard to fucking do, and they constantly keep tripping over their fucking own selves whenever they try to make this, and they try to add weird shit that doesn't. Again, simple recipe, adding too many ingredients, doing terrible technique, like you said.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's just like there's so much bad stuff in this. Like, even the closest we ever get to anything worth watching is Boreanaz's performance, and even that is not enough to get through all the bad in this.
His performance doesn't really take off until he starts to become Satan, because it's kind of, even the early stuff, he's not getting any support from his hench goons in terms of his craziness. Like, Tara Reid is not on his level in terms of being there. The only one who kind of matches it, again, is Chosen, and he dies immediately and leaves them right after that party. So that's why I wish he kind of stuck around. At least you'd have someone matching his crazy energy. Like,
yeah. And even like, and then we have to get Danny Trejo's in this, so of course we have to show off his tattoo. And and then it's supposed to be a Native American dance, I guess he's doing, but he's just kind of like swaying back and forth. It's just so bad. It's so bad.
Danny Trejo does what like many a drunk frat boy has done at a party, where he just takes off his shirt and starts going around in a circle. So yeah, no, it's not good.
All right. Anyway, is there anything else we want to say about this piece of shit, or are we pretty much done?
The only thing I'd like to say is just, again, like, it's not that hard. Like, yes, it is hard to make a movie. Don't get me wrong. Making films or making any type of art is fucking hard, and it's a pain in the ass to do. You make it 10 times harder when you try to overcomplicate a very simple premise. And I know I keep harping on it. It's not that hard to make this premise work. It literally like incentivizes you to just reboot things every single movie, which is the easiest thing to do, and to just tell an origin story. You don't have to worry about your character's growth after that, because usually they die and go back to heaven with their girlfriend or boyfriend or whoever they came back for. So the fact that this and this entire franchise can't seem to get it right after Brandon Lee, like, man, it shouldn't be this difficult.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think I think the best thing you could do with this franchise is make it like a streaming TV series where it's like each season is focused on a different crow, and kind of like American Horror Story or anything like that. And I think that would be, and it would give you probably a little bit more freedom to explore different types of things, because not all crow movies have to be basically cookie cutters of the original. That was one of the interesting things about the comics, where they went to different places. Like I think James O'Barr even did one set in a Nazi concentration camp. Like those are different ways where you could find different creative things to do. Like you could do this as a Western. You could do this in feudal Japan. You could do this in, I don't know, medieval Europe, whatever the case is. You could find a lot of different ways to retell this story and redo this kind of concept in different settings and find different types of stories to tell with it.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly like what they've finally figured out about the Predator series. Dan Trachtenberg, who was like, hey, let's set this in Native American times and just have that happen. And now he's doing another one in a different time period. And just, there's no reason that the Crow, a concept that's just about revenge, needs to be contemporary revenge. A Crow who, I don't know, escapes a slave plantation in the 1700s would be an interesting story. A Crow who's caught during the French Revolution would be an interesting story. There's tons of, like, you shouldn't be limited with that. Obviously, that stuff would cost more money, but, sometimes you got to open up the bank book to do that. But even with that, like, for a superhero concept too, the Crow is not that expensive because it's just a guy who heals. Like, you don't have to do like flying laser eyes like you do with Superman. You don't have to do the X-Men powers or anything like that. It's very easy to do just, he got shot, he's okay. So
I mean, they got 22 episodes on a syndicated TV show out of it, and it mostly worked. So they could do that. They could easily do it at a low budget and still make it look okay. Like, you don't have to have this piece of shit.
Yeah, just throw this on a streaming service, give us 8 episodes, and just make it an anthology.
Exactly, yeah. All right, Logan. Well, aside from the ranting, it was overall a fun conversation. It was great having you on and getting to catch up with you. But why don't you tell people where they can find you?
I'm on Blue Sky, so just check me out there. I have a WNBA podcast called WNBA. That'll start up again with the new WNBA season, and I usually pop up on a lot of like the ex-crack people's podcasts, so if you know who those are, you probably know where to check those out too. So yeah, cool.
Okay, awesome. As for us, superherocinephiles.com is the website, and we are Super Cinema Pod on mostly on Blue Sky, although we do post release announcements on Instagram and Threads as well, and we do have a Facebook page where we also post release announcements on there. But that does it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. Superhero Cinephiles is produced by me, Percival Constantine. The show is created by myself and the late, great Derek Ferguson, our host emeritus. Visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com to listen to past episodes or find out how you can be a guest yourself. Support the show by visiting our advertiser links or click the Buy Me a Coffee link on the website to make a one-time donation. We are Super Cinema Pod on both Instagram and Blue Sky, so please be sure to follow us. We'd also appreciate it if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and share us with your friends.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.